Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Sarah and Adam Show. It is not Great Expectations, which I had just about announced, but
or Zareth prevails.
you need to shut your mouth about that.
Rude. Rude.
You know what? You always like try to jinx me. You're always like I know you're gonna just say you're one of your other shows when you announce it, and I'm like, I think I've only done that one time, and you're like laughing like it's this huge victory.
I've never said it out loud that I expect you to say them.
Oh, you've said it many times out loud. You just didn't register that, apparently. No, I remember this because I heard it.
You don't remember this.
Stop trying to Jedi mind trick yourself out of this, Sarah. You're
Uh,
no Jedi.
I was just more making a joke about your memory, but
What were you joking about?
okay.
Ah.
All
Oh, today. We didn't really even. So, should we talk about Bad Batch today? And
right. I
um,
guess we didn't decide what we were gonna do.
that's why I said we didn't talk about it. Oh. But I was hoping we hadn't actually talked about it because you're right, I have a bad memory. I'm like I was like very possible that we actually did talk about that, and I just don't remember.
We can figure it out. Um, Maybe we'll talk about it, and we'll talk about The Last of Us and some news.
Okay. So news. There's some good news and some indifferent news.
What's the indifferent news?
Apparently you decided to write this down. I was just like exclaiming on it, but
Oh,
I noticed an article or a thing that said that they just announced that Toy Story 5, Frozen 3, Zootopia 2 were all coming out, and that is probably the last we'll talk about those ever on this show at any point. But
fair.
it is an impressive amount of, I don't know, that's a, yeah. I'm I hope they're good. I get. I Did you watch all the Toy Stories? Are you up to date on them?
I have watched all of them. I've watched
Mm.
all the Frozens. I've watched Zootopia.
Yeah, I've watched enough Zootopia to really cover my base, like to be able to make up for never watching any more than just the first Toy Story.
You've never watched more than the first Toy Story? I can't even
I
say it without
I can at least I can pronounce Toy
I
Story.
can't even
Okay.
get through the sentence with what?
What? Who cares? There's a snake in my boot. Okay, get over it.
Who hurt you?
I don't know. Maybe it was Tom Hanks.
Man, I don't even know what to think right now.
Well, that's fine. What? Why can't I just not have seen them? That's fine. It's fine. Okay. Everything's fine here. Situation normal. How are you?
Oh man. Okay. Well,
Oh,
I
stop.
guess you're not watching Toy
Stop.
Story 5.
I might catch up at some point. My boys might end up wanting to watch. I don't mind watching those kids movies. It's just not something that I've really been that interested in. I don't know. Like I always thought that like Buzz Lightyear is so full of shit, and he does just annoyed me the whole time. And then he ended up like, you know, like he has some character development, but I can never get past how annoying he was at the start. So I never liked
Man.
it.
I just watched Toy Story a couple months ago.
Hmm.
Anyway, moving
Uh,
on.
it's good enough. I have watched I've watched Frozen, both of them.
Mhm.
But Zootopia, that's there where the money's at. My boys love that one, and I
Zootopia
really like it too.
is very good.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, so those are coming out. Just an impressive loyalty to those franchises, I suppose. The Jedi Survivor from Jedi Fallen Order, like the sequel to that, the
Mm-hmm.
video game is being pushed back to April. Um, because EA is struggling with money things. Um,
That's why they're pushing it back.
I don't know for like so that they did have they actually shut down a couple of their bigger mobile games because
Mm-hmm.
they had lost a ton of profit on them. And even though Galaxy of Heroes did well, and they said that in their quarterly, report or whatever it was, like Galaxy of Heroes continues to be good. Like they had a pretty dramatic losses, like 10%, like total profits reduced or something like that. So
Yikes.
and one of their mitigating things was they were going to push Jedi Survivor back a little
Mm-hmm.
bit, apparently, as part of that. I don't know what strategic like concern they had over it, or like what that was part of, but that's
That's
they were linked somehow.
interesting. Okay.
um Yeah, and then yeah, so I guess the one that's a little bit more exciting for me,
Mm-hmm.
uh, just I think my littlest boy, he's 5 now. It's so sad, for me.
Oh man.
It's so tragic. I'm just like, don't ever leave this house. You can just stay here and be a pathetic 40-year-old in my basement. I don't care. Just don't leave me. I'll feel differently when he's 40, but
It's true.
uh, the young Jedi's show
Mm-hmm.
is it's being released earlier than I thought, I guess. It's being released on May 4th. So we get one
Mm-hmm.
worthless show with Visions and one potentially worthless show with the Young Jedi.
Yeah. I mean, it looks like it's gonna be pretty. It's definitely aimed at kids. Like 100% looks that way, but it looks like it'll be pretty cute. Maybe.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's like Bad Batch might like it's kind of aimed a little bit at kids too, I guess, but
Mm-hmm.
like you can make the argument that it's not going to be like that it's just kids. Like, I don't feel ever at any point foolish or silly watching Bad Batch on my own, for instance.
Right.
Like it's like, oh yeah, this is cool. This is something, that's okay for my age to watch.
Yeah.
I guess other adults feel differently, but
That's
Bad
because they're
Batch,
wrong.
right, right, yeah. That's why God invented wrong people. I don't know what that means. But but this no, the Young Jedi Adventures is what it's called. It looks cute,
Mm-hmm.
and what I think is cool. So in Bad Batch, they just had a couple episodes with yeah, I don't want to do spoilers, but with a character
Mm-hmm.
of a certain species, and like that character of that certain species is also represented in this Young Jedi
Mm-hmm.
show, Young Jedi Adventures, and so it just made me think of like, oh, like maybe that was strategic on their end, actually.
Oh yeah, for sure. All right. I mean, I'm assuming that they all kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Not like commingle, but
Collaborate, maybe.
yeah, yeah, collaborate. That's the one.
Well, you got the co part right.
Yeah, thanks.
I probably shared a couple same letters as well.
Sure. There's an L in there.
Right, just not much more, but it certainly had some. And yeah, this show looks a little cutesy, a little. I don't know. Yoda looks like creepy as
He
hell, but
does. But the other ones look cute.
yeah, and I'm guessing the show will be mostly about them. I bet that Yoda will just be like, "Hmm? Go forth and you know talk to so and so.
He'll be there just every once in a while.
Help master, assist master so and so with this task. You will."
And it's just about the young Jedi.
And then they go around. Yeah, I don't
Mhm.
know. It might be fun. It might be just awful, but I love that they're making a. It looks not at the very least like the graphics look nice,
Mhm.
and like it. I like that they're making stuff for that age range of kids, and I wouldn't have cared as much except I have kids that age range. Well, one of them, I think my elder probably won't be as interested, but
Mhm.
he might too. You never know.
Maybe he'll
It's
surprise you.
it's Star Wars. They love Star Wars, man. It's pure joy. You know, I wake up in the morning, and if it's screen morning, which is like weekend mornings basically.
Hmm.
But they get to do screenery is what we call it. And it's just it's fun. I'll go out. I wake up and I come out to the sound of lightsabers whirring, and it's they're playing like the Jedi Lego game or the Star Wars Lego game and stuff. So, anyways, we don't need to talk about that further. But yeah,
Yeah.
good news stuff, I guess.
Yeah. The
Oh,
only.
ooh,
Hmm.
oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say the only other thing that I saw, and it's not like newsy, but more of like a PSA type thing. The next episode of The Last of
Hmm,
Us is airing
I
on.
was about to say that.
Yeah, it's airing on Friday, so
Yeah,
the 10th,
a couple days early,
a couple days early. Because
so it
they.
doesn't have to compete
Yep, exactly.
with the Super Bowl. Sorry, I'm like I want to prove that I know what she's talking about.
Yeah, but I feel like that's smart. I mean, I probably would have watched it instead of the Super Bowl, but
Yeah, I mean, I'm streaming that time
yeah, that's
anyways.
true.
Like,
That is true.
so I just don't. I end up watching it on like Tuesdays when I have time to watch it. So it's really it's like a cow's opinion. It's moo,
It's Moo.
but it it is yeah. It's been pleasant. I don't know, surprise. I'm not that surprised that I enjoy it, but what I'm surprised about is that it's I don't know it's a been a lot more enjoyable in different ways than I had imagined.
Yep.
And I mean the fact that my wife can actually watch it with me,
Mm-hmm.
despite her hating that sort of thing, typically like horror kind of genre stuff. Like I don't like it. She like abhors it,
Right.
and she's always like referencing it now, and she likes it a lot. So
Because it's not too intense.
they made it approachable.
Yeah.
Like it's cool. Like that. I mean, uh, every show should. I don't know. Like I guess there's a certain amount of value to a show being able to be pretty extreme and really catering to its specific audience, but I feel like a lot of shows could really benefit from like just kind of softening the edges just a little bit
Mm-hmm.
to let more people access it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and they do it really well because, and I said this when a couple of people hadn't, a couple of people that I was talking to about the show were like, oh, it's another zombie show. And I was like, it's not a zombie show. Like, it's about society and humanity. And I think that's what makes it more approachable than just having, like, your stereotypical, I don't want to call them zombies because they're not zombies, but like that kind of stereotypical thing
Hmm.
happening and jump scaring you and like being gory and whatever.
Yeah, they don't do that.
Yeah. It's total different. It's a nice refreshing angle.
Oh, it is. I really like this last episode.
Mhm.
So I guess here we'll put up the spoiler wall now.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we'll be discussing I guess this first, and then if we have time, Bad Batch.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So we'll be discussing the Last of Us now. Up through episode 4.
Mhm.
So this last episode didn't have any zombies at all. Like there was
No.
kind of a hint at them, and of course they mentioned them and stuff because that's like an everyday factor for their lives. Like it would be weird if they didn't. But
Right.
um, in a way, I feel like they've kind of moved past that. They're like, okay, yeah, it's a dangerous world with zombies, and there'll be elements here, but the real threats are still ahead. Like the humanity is its own. It's the
Exactly.
problem.
Exactly. Yeah, and I thought it was so refreshing that this one, like you said, didn't have them in it at all. It was all about you still have that lingering there. That knowledge is still there that they have to be extra cautious because of that.
Hmm.
Um, but it is entirely about other humans and how you survive you know, in this new era, in this new world, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what did you think of the episode overall then? Since it was the first one without any infected in it.
Yeah. So this is a mark of how much I've been enjoying it. I looked at the 50-minute tag on it or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, and I was like, oh, like bummer. Why
I
isn't it like a full like? Why isn't it an hour or more? Damn it all.
I actually had that reaction too. Like when you hit play like on the stream or whatever, and the little like timer or whatever bar comes up at the top
Hmm.
or at the bottom. Sorry, I was like, oh, it's a shorter one.
Yeah, yeah, and it's kind of nice to feel like, oh, I've been enjoying it enough to. I'm like, yeah, give me a 2 hour. I'll watch a movie's worth of it tonight. I don't care. Like,
Right.
I'll enjoy the whole thing. And so I mean, it's just nice to notice that kind of thing because it's like you can tell yourself that you like a thing. You
Mm-hmm.
can tell yourself, you can convince yourself, and you might believe it. But you don't have those little like indicators there
Right.
necessarily of that being like the but it's like, well, yeah, I'm pretty sure like this is true. I do enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that I don't know if it'll just be an ongoing gag or not, but there were a couple more scenes that were very reminiscent of him and like Pedro Pascal, the Mandalorian, and her as Grogu.
Right.
Like he has that moment where he's like, "Go to sleep"
Yeah.
to her, and it just I linked you to that song, right?
Mm-hmm.
The "Go to Sleep, My Little Green Friend." Like
Yeah.
it's and me and my boys listen to that for our night song every once in a while too. So I don't. It was just like it strikes so many of the same vibes of like you know a dad he's not actually the dad, but he becomes the dad and feels protective about this younger kid who's all into him and really wants to seeks his approval and his relies on him but is also helpful to him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it also like that moment where she sneaks up and shoots the guy, off of him,
Yeah.
and it was like every once in a while Grogu does that for Mandalorian
Yeah.
as well. Like Mando's like, no, I'm the one who's fighting, and Grogu's like, I can use the Force and just
Yeah. Just
knock him out or something.
totally. Just save you here, and we'll carry on our way.
Yeah, like it's fun because I'm all hyped up for the Mandalorian season, which
Mm-hmm.
is actually coming up here pretty soon.
Yeah.
But like this is just not that I really see him as the same thing. It is pretty different, but I mean, the Mandalorian lives in a kind of dystopian universe, anyways.
True.
Frankly, like the people he hangs out with, they're all dysfunctional and crazy, and it's a whole mess. Society's a mess in both places, and he's an unlikely father figure in both. So
And
it's fun, and I like Pedro Pascal. Like he hosted Saturday Night Live recently, and I've been like, wow, these are like the first Saturday Night Live skits that I've enjoyed recently.
mm-hmm.
For the most part, I'm like, oh, that was a waste of my time. Give me my money back.
No, he's doing a really good job. So
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't really have any. I don't think I have any complaints when I'm watching it. I'm just like, cool. Episode's over already. Okay, I guess I'll wait a week. And that's also, can I just say, like, as shows, because like obviously you have shows that sometimes they just release the whole season, or they'll release half the season, or however much at once,
Hmm.
and then shows like this where it is streaming, but like they're releasing it 1 week at a time. Um, and I feel like it's a really good mark when you've got a show that you can't, like, I can't wait to watch it. It's not a show where I'm like, oh, it aired like 4 days ago, and I'll watch it when I get around to it, and hopefully I don't fall too far behind, kind of thing. Like I'm like, oh, I gotta watch it as soon as I can.
Yeah, this one is always I'm always just like, oh, uh, I, it's just a mark of how busy I am, I guess.
Hmm.
I wanted to get that Harry Potter game tonight actually, and I'm like, I don't know what time I thought I had tonight, but I wanted to play it, and I just don't have time for anything that's not scheduled for me at this point. But I consistently on Sundays, I'm like, man, if I could get my stream done early enough, and then I gotta like record a video. But then if I have enough time, if I can meet my certain time deadline, then I'm definitely gonna watch it early, and then I'll rewatch it.
Right.
And then I never have time, and it's always disappointing. But none of the other shows that we've been watching, I've never been like, ooh, maybe I'll watch it early. Like I'm usually just like, oh, I'll just wait.
Right, exactly. But that's like a good, like, yeah, you're busy, but that's a good mark that even though you're busy, you're like, oh, maybe I can try and squeeze it in. And
Yeah.
then it sounds like you kind of get a little disappointed when you can't.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. So it's been fun. I don't know. It's fun to see. I've always really liked dad jokes and just like the kind of cheesy,
yeah.
clever like witticism kind of nonsense. I've always liked that stuff, and I like that she's been just reading jokes from a joke book. Just
Mhm.
some random thing. Um,
It's it's also kind of cool cuz when you think about it, like she was born in this like already post-apocalyptic world. Um so there are so many things that she has never known um that you don't even think about like when they got in that car when they got in the truck the first time and he was
mhm.
like put your seatbelt on and she just stared blankly at him. I was like, that's actually genius because of course she doesn't know what a seatbelt is. She's never been in a car. Like there's just these little things that I'm like, it's so smart the way it's handled.
Yeah, I like those kind and they draw attention to it a few other times too of
Hmm.
like, hey, shut up. I've this is only my second day ever in my car.
Right.
I don't know how to read a map. What are you kidding me? Like I don't know what interstates are. I don't know. Uh
And
yeah.
well, I also feel like that is really relatable too because I think now, like I grew up and I was reading maps when I was a kid, but I think now not many kids are like you're reading it off of your like Google Maps off your phone, right?
Yeah.
And I kind of chuckled at it a little bit because that one in particular I felt like could really relate to a lot of people now because there are a lot of people that just don't know how to read a map.
Yeah, I think you're right.
But it's just they have a good way of working in those they're like little humorous moments.
That they are. It's good. Yeah. I like how they've been. They've just been yeah, they've been doing a good job, I guess. Just of I don't know. That like I like the way they're building their relationship, I guess is the biggest thing.
Hmm.
And I mean it's so satisfying even though it's almost I don't know. I don't want to say cliche. Like it's like expected though, right? Of he's going to soften up toward her.
Right.
Like how boring would the show be if he was just tough and impervious to her at every turn. Like it would get old. It's
Right.
just like, dude, like she's putting forth the effort. You're not. You're just being a jackass. Like knock it off. You know. Uh he doesn't want her to get past his guards because he knows that he's opening himself up for potential pain in the future,
Hmm.
and I can totally get that. There's a lot of things in my life that have kind of helped me to understand that on like a much deeper level, and so I get that. At the same time, like why watch the show if he just never opens up?
Right. And like that's as much as part of the story as, seeing how humanity interacts now in this new world. That's a part of it, but also his relationship with her is a huge part of this story. And getting to watch that build is very important, I think.
Oh, I think so. Well, and it kind of shows it like underscores like, okay, what's important? Is it just like zombie slaying, like really
Right.
cool, epic choreographed fight scenes, or like frightening people, or is it like epic, like depictions of the new, dystopian society and universe? Or is it just is it character driven? Is it going to
Mm-hmm.
be like how do people interact with each other? And yeah, I just keep being impressed by Pedro Pascal's acting. Like I keep thinking he's wasted behind his Mandalorian helmet.
He is,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
I mean, he kind of, it feels like he is genuinely. Like I think there are actually scenes in Mandalorian
Mm-hmm.
that he's like, yeah, actually wasn't in that. See, like, because they
Right.
could just have a different actor in there as long as they're a similar body type or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But he's even got the armor to kind of like you couldn't have me in there because I'm way taller or something, but like someone of about the same size, why not?
Yeah. Uh,
It's yeah. So it's but he does a good job of just I don't know, playing the character that he is, I guess.
right. Um, so what did you think of in this episode? So that they are on their way
Hmm.
across the country. Uh, and what did you think of the hunters? So like they're in Kansas City and they
Hmm.
get get trapped.
So first, I thought it was fun that it was in everything was they admitted in the end of the show thing about everything. It's filmed in Calgary,
Yeah.
like you had said. You had said that. So I would thought I'd acknowledge that. Not that I like opposed you or on it or whatever, but I was like, oh, it is all filmed in Canada. That's cool. First off, let me ask you this
Mm-hmm.
because what I've heard, and I just don't. I've you know I've traveled to other places and everything, to some degree, but I'm not super well traveled outside of the states. And the times that I have been
Mm-hmm.
well traveled in other nations, it's like, well, I know certain segments of Iraq really well.
Right.
Like I know like and Iraq is not a good gauge for, but I've heard Canadians say things like the American interstate system is so amazing. And do you guys have an interstate system? Like I'm just curious, like what's the interstate situation in Canada, like with the you know
Like when you say interstate, do you mean like interstate highway?
Yeah, like interstate
Yeah.
highways. Like, do you guys have? I'm just like I'm obviously I'm just demonstrating my ignorance. I'm just curious. I actually found myself thinking that though, because specifically because it's filmed in Canada,
Mm-hmm.
and yet they're showing them driving on the interstate. And I've heard a lot of people in Canada talking in a way that's like, well, they don't really like we don't really have an interstate the way at least the way the United States does. So I'm just curious what your perspective on it is.
We have like a Trans Canada highway, which is one highway that runs obviously across all of Canada. Um and then you've got your own highways within the provinces. So a lot of the time when you're driving like across Canada, you're on that Trans Canada highway or like side roads, and then you get on highways in the provinces and then ca- drive through them and get off and get on other ones. So like the highways that are in Ontario won't necessarily be in Calgary in Alberta. Um,
Mm,
but
okay.
I could still get there. I just have to maneuver my way around.
It might be a little more difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. It's still I
It's
think it's like a from Toronto to Calgary, if I'm remembering correctly, if you don't stop, it's like a 19-hour drive or something. And you can do it.
But that would all be on the Trans Canada
Yeah, but
Highway.
the Trans Canada Highway does not look like an interstate highway. Like there are parts of it that is it it looks like a back road almost.
Okay. All right. So it does sound like maybe the United States is a bigger and I've heard the United States in its current form, like whenever if we had to like begin construction on something like that, we couldn't have done that. So it was more just like it's like it's almost just like this cool historical thing that allowed us to build this system, and now it's like,
Mhm.
oh, thank goodness that actually happened because now we can't because we suck at things. But I was just interested to hear what the so thank you for that context. Um yeah, okay. So they get to well, it was fun because my wife actually has spent some time in that city actually.
In Calgary
Oh, sorry, in
or in
St.
Kansas?
Louis.
Oh.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Uh so I mean she wouldn't know it enough to I was just like, "Oh, do you know this? Like what's you know?" And she's like, well, I've she spent more time. Like she was like more of a kid when she went. Like she had relatives there. She, I think still does, but I don't know. It's fun because I'm from Wyoming and I'm excited to see what they're
Mhm.
talking. They listed off a bunch of Wyoming city names actually,
Yeah, and
and like Laramie was the town that I got my master's degree in, for
oh,
instance.
really?
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, it was fun. And she like couldn't say Cheyenne. And Cheyenne is
Mhm.
the place I got my first what I call my first grown-up job.
Yeah.
Like while I was going to grad school, I also got a job in Cheyenne because it's like a 50-minute drive from in Wyoming. That's it's not too far of a commute for between cities. So
Mhm.
anyways, it was just fun to see or to hear about the Wyoming stuff, but then also to see, it's like an area of the world that me and my wife both kind of know that area, so
Mhm.
it's fun.
And you can see how they're going. Well, they haven't gotten there yet, but you're going to see how they bring it to the screen.
Yeah, well, and I don't feel like they need to, like have it be completely geographically accurate or whatever. I'm curious on what their take of how is Calgary going to demonstrate what Wyoming is, right? Wyoming's essence. I'm interested to see.
Okay. I'm curious what you'll think. I think Calgary might be able to pull it off.
Maybe I'm sure that there will be some things that I'm like, that is so wrong,
Mhm.
but only a local would notice or
Right.
something.
Right.
Yeah, I'm curious because no shows ever go to Wyoming.
That's fair.
Yeah, there's like less than half. There's like 500,000 people in the whole state, and it's like the eighth biggest state of the 50.
Mhm. Like
Uh,
geographically.
yeah,
Yeah.
geographically, it's huge, and it's the least populated by far.
Man.
Very silly. So, anyways, enough about that.
Mhm.
What did you think? What were your thoughts? Especially they went for a long they drove for a long time
Yeah.
and like encountered no one, which like well, The Walking Dead was certainly not like that. It's like you can't travel anywhere in The Walking Dead. It
Mhm.
felt like anytime you go through any level of population center, it was like, oh, you can't go there because zombies, you
Mhm.
know.
Mhm. Um yeah, they didn't really show anyone. And then I think it also I think it's one they just didn't show like any infected really. Um but I think a lot of the people are just in quarantine zones here.
Mhm.
I mean, you have people who aren't, but I don't think you're going to encounter them on main roads.
Yeah, well, so one thing that's really struck me in this show is the lack, like everyone just wants to go in their fort and then just hole up there. Like they don't want to go out. Like the episode before this
Hmm.
with Bill, I always want to say Bill and Ted, but Bill and Frank,
Yes.
and like they get bothered in like the whole arc is what 20 years or something,
Hmm.
and they get bothered one time by raiders. And
Right.
otherwise, like, no one ever messes with them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it is just totally isolated completely. And I guess there might be a little bit of like some people, they might encounter a couple people, but for the most part, not really.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they made one friend or two friends, I guess, Joel and Tess,
Right.
and that was it. Like, no one ever messed with them. And then once again, well, they're driving through and he's just like in some random parking lot and he just finds a bunch of cars that he can take the gas out of
Mm-hmm.
after 20 years.
Right. Because it's just sitting there.
It's been sitting there for 20 years with gas and no one else has come through and siphoned it out.
Mm-hmm. I think um, part of it is that a lot of people are, I don't want to say content, but probably are more accepting or
Mm-hmm.
more willing to stay in the quarantine zones and follow Fedra and just kind of follow like this is what your life is now, and at least in a quarantine zone I'm safe, versus going out and traveling and having to deal with infected or raiders or hunters or like whoever is on the road. And it's, some people might just be like it's the lesser of two evils to just stay put where we are.
Frankly, I probably would too. I doubt that I'd be that adventurous.
Right.
I just it's different. It's a different field than the way Walking Dead feels, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Which is my like the biggest parallel. Even though we're saying like it's not really a zombie show, it's still the zombie show
Right.
on a lot of important
And
levels.
that's like that's the show too that like you would compare it to.
Oh yeah, it's by far the biggest, and the one that I personally have experienced the most. So,
Mm-hmm.
and it feels different in that regard. Um, not in a bad way. It's just, they go to a gas station and there's still stuff to loot
Right.
because everyone is just like, all right, we have our cities, we're not leaving. Like we're holed up here, we're self sufficient, and the whole rest of the world can just go to hell, I guess.
Yeah. I feel like it, part of me is like it's a little unrealistic that there would still be stuff left to loot, you know? Or like gas and cars, for example, or whatever. But then the other part of me is like, well, if you just quarantined up right away, like
Right.
if the government moved in that quickly, like it looked like they did, especially like in the premiere where you have the government soldiers killing people and
Right. Just slaughtering people.
right.
Mm-hmm.
So they're clearly moving in quickly. They're bombing cities, like all of that kind of stuff. You're going to get those quarantine zones up quickly. So maybe people aren't going to necessarily make it to go and loot gas stations or convenience stores or whatever's left. And if
Right.
there is anybody left in those areas that aren't in quarantine zones and are able to do that, I would think that at the beginning, because I would think that when something like this starts, the longer you've been in it, the more skills you've kind of honed, right? Like the more survival skills you've gotten, like Joel knows to be quiet when they are in an area where there's clickers, right? And um Ellie didn't know that, and he's like trying to teach her not to make a sound. And earlier on when this is first starting, you're not going to know those kinds of things. You're not going to have those survival skills necessarily right away. So if you're caught in like the middle of say two quarantine zones and you're trying to get from one to the other, and maybe there is a convenience store you can go loot, what is the likelihood of you successfully looting it versus getting attacked by infected? In which case, the infected don't care that the grocery store is full of candy bars still or whatever.
Chef Boyardee. Yeah.
Yeah, right? They're going to leave it and it will still sit there and you just become one of them or you die.
No, I mean it makes some sense. I mean, they show in episode 3, them rounding up like all of the old, like the little village people, like the people from
Yeah.
all the rural communities, and then they just like if they don't have room, they just slaughter them,
Yeah.
so they're not liabilities. So I mean, I can get behind that on some levels, not get behind like slaughtering people, but just I can
Like,
understand what how it gets to be that way. It's just a different shape. In The Walking Dead, at least the parts that I watched, I don't know if there
mhm,
eventually forms like a bigger, like wider government, but there isn't. Like government is gone. It's just
right,
groups of people.
right. You are your own law, kind of thing.
Yeah, like you
Hmm.
see people and you're like, don't trust them. And I mean
Hmm.
that's really the way it is with, Joel sees that guy in
Yeah.
St. Louis and he's like, she's like, are we gonna help that guy? And he's like, no.
No, put your seatbelt on.
Yeah.
Because he
He,
and that goes back to like being around it long enough and knowing what's going on. Like he knows what the guy is doing.
mhm. Yeah, I mean, it led to that really interesting thing of she's like, did you hurt innocent people? And he just pauses and doesn't answer.
Hmm.
Like it's sad, but at the same time, you're like, oh man. He's like, we did what we had to, kind of thing.
Yeah. But I also think that it paints him in this very realistic light. Like he's not a savior. He's not evil. He's a
Right?
very gray character.
Yeah, he's a pragmatist.
Hmm.
He needs to do what he needs to do.
Yeah. So, um, okay, so they're in this town and whatever. It's a town full of hunters. Like they've overthrown the government here. They've overthrown Fedra and taken over
Is that what the game calls them? Hunters?
hunters. And I believe her name was Kathleen, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's not in the game. This was a character created for the show.
Oh yeah, I could see that.
Um,
Well, in the after show, they were talking about how, first off, it's supposed to be in Pittsburgh. It's set in Pittsburgh in the
yes.
game,
Hmm.
and so that they thought that they could represent St. Louis a little bit better,
Hmm.
and so they did that. And then he was like, but in the game, these people are just they're just impediments. They're just people you have to get through,
Yeah.
kind of like that. And they're like, so our goal was to how can we humanize them?
Right. Which was, I think, smart because in the game you're just, and this is also pretty close to like if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure this is pretty close to like the halfway mark of the game. Um,
Oh, already, okay.
like give or take, maybe a little bit beforehand. Um, but yeah, it's exactly that. You're just trying to get through them and survive in the game, and they're not really humanized because you're just making your way through as quickly as possible, trying to survive.
Hmm.
Um, so I think that was smart to do it that way.
Yeah, I liked. I mean, anytime that they can actually put I've never. No, I shouldn't say never. Every thing has a time and place, but more and more, I think that this is just what they're trying to do, anyways. In a lot of shows, is I like that they're making more complex bad guys, where you're
Right.
like, oh, yeah, you know what? I could actually see myself as like part of that group, and if life had kind of taken a different turn, and like,
Hmm.
oh,
Or you're like, I
you
could
know,
see how they got here.
at the very least, yeah, you can actually see, you know, it's and I like that. I like that little extra complication. And Kathleen is, she's like wavering about killing that guy in cold blood,
Hmm.
and then they see the corpses, and she just goes back and just caps him, just kills that old man,
Hmm. She that actress did a really good job, I think, with her.
Yeah, she seemed conflicted and yet determined.
Right, exactly. Um, she's not who you would stereotypically put in like a leadership, post-apocalyptic, survivalist, whatever you want to call it, area. Like she's not the biggest and baddest and meanest person. She looks like somebody who is probably pretty smart and knows how to organize people
Sure.
or knows how to. Like if you're going to be, I would think, the leader of a group of people who are going to overthrow a government organization in your quarantine
Hmm.
zone, you got to be pretty smart to do it. And you got to be pretty good with people to organize them.
Probably pretty competent. Yeah.
Mhm.
I think like she kind of annoyed me in the sense that that's like they found something that we don't know what that is. Like we kind of assume that they find some like thing that the dead the zombies are gonna be coming through or whatever.
Mhm.
Like you find some, and she's like, no, we won't tell them yet. Like she's clearly got her own agenda,
Yeah.
and that I don't know. I'm like, I wouldn't want that person to be my leader. Like that military guy who's hanging out with her.
Mhm.
And he's like, really? We're not going to tell people? Like, I think I'd just be like, yeah, okay, Kathleen, sure. And I go tell people. Well, I mean, maybe I wouldn't, depending on if she would just like have me killed afterward. But
Right. I guess it would depend on what would be the fallout from you going against her.
yeah. So they're going for Henry, and I guess
Mhm.
we should actually so yeah Mando and Grogu find get ambushed,
Mhm.
and I thought that it would be like a whole city government attacking them. I
Right.
figured that was what it would be, but it's just like three guys.
Yeah. Yeah, I was surprised by how few it was.
Yeah, and so he just like takes them out.
Mhm.
um she ends up like she could have killed the guy. She doesn't quite, but she shoots him. What did you think of the scene where he's like, he sees the gun in her hands, he just takes it from her, sends her out, and then he's like clearly gonna kill the guy? Like, what did you think of that? And the guy's like, no, 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 don't kill me, please. I want to go see my mom. And like,
Mhm.
what was going through your mind? That whole like, there's a lot of emotions there.
Um so at first, like, you can tell that he's looking at her when she's got the gun
Hmm.
in a like, where the hell did you get that gun? Like, and why didn't I know you have it? And why do you have it? And like,
Why have you betrayed me almost?
yeah, it was just a very like, I don't want to say he looked disappointed at her, but I think he was just more like astonished that she had it and he didn't know that she had it. That's how it kind of came across. Um, and then you have like this moment exactly where you said, where he takes it from her and sends her away, and it's almost very fatherly, like, where he's like, I don't want you to see this.
Hmm.
um Almost like he's protecting her in a way from it, and also not letting her be the one to do it, that he's going to be the one that does it. um but given what we have been learning about Joel so far in the show, I don't think anyone should necessarily be surprised that he would do that. In terms of, like, by that, I mean, I don't think anyone should be surprised that he would kill that guy.
No, I mean, I've said it before. I I and it makes me always question if I'm like a terrible person, but I I get that really that resonates with me. I'm like, someone tried to murder me,
Mm-hmm.
and whereas I don't know that I'm the guy who should determine whether they lose their life for that.
Right.
At the same time, I think that I'm pragmatic enough too. I have that in me that like I just don't think that guy would have survived if I was in a similar situation. I think I just, whether or not I had the balls to just kill someone in cold blood is another question. But it just makes too much sense to be like, no, like this guy tried to murder you
Mm-hmm.
just to take your stuff.
Well, and I also think that Joel knows they're in an area that there are clearly more of them. Like, those aren't the only guys. And they don't know how to get out of there safely. They don't know what buildings they can go to.
Right.
So let's say he doesn't kill him. I think he knows there's a very good chance that that guy could go and get more of his buddies and go back and try and find them and kill them again, or try to kill them again.
Yeah, I just think it makes too much sense. Like just take care of your business. It's ugly, sure. I,
Mm-hmm.
I don't love how ugly it is, but like who's he needs to be loyal to himself and to the people he's with. I don't know. It was just interesting that he sent her away first. He's like, no, you don't. You're too young to. I don't
Yeah.
want you to have to deal with this.
It is a very but this does just highlight that it is a very like every man for himself kind of thing.
Hmm.
And he knows that. But at the same time, he's going to protect Ellie.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Um yeah, and they're hiding in the city and they're just trying to make their way out without getting caught by any hunters.
Yeah. So how well did this parallel the game? Like, what did the game do this?
Um I can't remember if you were in a I think you were in a city. I know in the game you are um trying to like fight your way out of a group of hunters of people that are hunting you down. So I'm pretty sure it's in the city, and it does end in a similar fashion where you end up getting caught, so to speak, by two people.
Okay, and are those two people Sam and Henry?
Yes.
Nice.
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm interested. Like I liked that they had all the drawings of like the Superman stuff in the room that we saw in one scene, and
Yeah.
then the little kid or the kid has the same like red like glasses drawn on him kind of.
Yeah. Yeah. He does. So, they are in the game. They're pretty important, I would say.
Okay, I mean they'll probably just die because that's how this show's been going. But
Everyone just dies. Oh man. But yeah, it's a I think we're in a good zone. I think like I'm very excited to see what they do with the rest of the season after this one. And it doesn't even the stuff that they've been I feel like the stuff that they've been straying away from in terms of the game, whether they're adding characters or adding the backstory and stuff like that, it doesn't feel nonsensy. It feels like it's been very like good for the story.
yeah, I mean there's substance behind it all.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So cool.
right. So, um I guess we only have like 5 episodes left of it, right? Cuz there's
Yeah.
9.
Yeah, so this was in a way it was kind of the halfway mark.
Mhm. So, that's kind of sad. I guess I mean the good news is we go from one Pedro Pascal show to the next.
Yeah, we'll just maybe he'll have another one after that, after Mando.
We'll see what he does. Um Cool. What do you have any like hopes for the next episode or are you just kind of along for the ride?
Oh yeah, I'm more just along for the ride. It seems like they gave a little preview of a bunch of the infected are they're going to be attacking and stuff. It kind of seems like I I mean there's this whole thing of it really feels like it seems like they overthrew Fedra
Mhm.
and are now as bad as Fedra or worse.
Right.
Frankly, like they're like, oh man, those asshole Fedra guys. We're not gonna be like them. We're just gonna kill people indiscriminately and do whatever we want.
Right.
So I guess we are gonna be like them, but we won't acknowledge it. So in a way, I'm wondering if that's going to be like a cautionary tale of like, well, at least if you were with Fedra, those infected wouldn't have really overrun the place. Like you'd have been safe with Fedra, but
Mm.
not, you know. I don't know. It seems like St. Louis, the people of St. Louis are they're going to be in some pretty hot water here pretty soon. It'll be interesting to see what all happens. And my guess is that Pedro Pascal and company
Mm-hmm.
will just be like, "All right, thanks for the distraction, infected. Like we're out."
Yeah. Tough shit to the people of St. Louis.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's who knows. Otherwise, yeah, I'll be very interested to see what his reunion with his brother is going to be like,
Mm-hmm.
and I liked how he kind of gave a little bit more backstory on his brother as well.
Yeah. He's fleshing out some more details, which is
Yeah.
kind of great actually for this whole like driving across the country kind of thing. You have these moments where they are in the car and you can add some more details that way and show at the same time that time is passing and
Hmm.
that they're traveling and moving across and whatever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Sweet. Any other thoughts? I think that's it. I think we covered it all.
I think so. Every single part.
Yeah. Um, do you want to talk about Bad Batch quickly? There are several episodes.
I don't know how we are looking at it on time. We're looking
We're about an hour in, so your call.
at we should probably talk about it a little bit at least. We could try to keep it to like 20 minutes or so.
Yeah, I feel like episodes 5 and 6 don't need. I mean, we can address them, but I feel like they are not as vital as of yet than 7 and 8.
Right, I think we already talked about 5, didn't we?
Mm,
Oh no, we
no.
hadn't talked. Yeah, because we had missed a week,
Mm-hmm.
and then we didn't talk about them the next week, and then we got two more the next week. Okay.
Yeah, because I was super confused that we had two this week.
Yeah, so one of them was the treasure hunter one, right?
Right.
Which I thought. All right, so what do you think of that one? I'm trying to pull up Disney Plus. My keyboard's not working.
Oh, so that we can have the synopses.
Yeah.
Um, I thought it was okay. It felt like your typical the squad is going on a mission episode.
Yeah, I would say it's about as filler as possible. That was the most filler episode so far.
Yeah, they're on a mission and treasure hunting, and then that's it. And then the next episode, it doesn't even really like that episode entirely was like a standalone thing. Like you could just pop it out or pop it in as you saw fit.
That's what she said. But yeah, like so it's called Entombed, and
Right.
the little synopsis is the batch searches for an ancient treasure that stirs up a shocking surprise.
Mhm.
So I'll just say my favorite part of this episode, not that any of it was really that great. The thing that I really liked about it though was the idea of technology that predated the Republic. Now
Mhm.
remember, old Ben at some point said for 1,000 generations
Mhm.
the Jedi were, the guardians of peace and justice in the in the or in the Republic or whatever.
Right.
Like the Republic had been around for 1,000 generations, like 30,000 years or something like that.
Mhm. Which is insane.
Yeah, it's like a mind-numbing amount of time,
Yeah.
really, if you think about it. Like if you think 2,000 years ago, people were killing Jesus,
Right.
kind of thing. Like nailing him to, some wood, and like the Romans were around and doing their stuff, and then 2,000 years before that, it was just like 4,000 years ago, and we were in the sticks. Like we had, yeah, there was society, but not much. And if you go 10,000 years ago, there was like almost like humanity was just not much at
Right.
all. And then if you think 10,000, like 30,000 years ago, they still had the level of technology that they had.
Right.
that predated the Old Republic. Like it was just a cool thing. Like just the scope of how old the galaxy is. You kind of lose track of that when you think about the timeline of just, all right, first there was the Clone Wars, or
Mm-hmm.
for like first there was like, I guess, the Republic before the Clone Wars with the Trade Federation, and then the Clone Wars, and then the Rebellion, and then the nonsense with Rey and Palpatine's, you know, heritage. And like that's all just like so small compared to the greater scope of a universe.
Well,
That
and
big.
when you look at it like that too, it doesn't feel like it is much smaller, of course, but you're also not recognizing how many years are necessarily packed into that. You're just like, okay, you have this era and this era and this era.
Hmm.
Um, but if no one specifically says like this was a 1,000 year period or however long X amount of time, um, it's almost like one after the other, and it's very easy to condense it time wise,
Right.
at least mentally.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, like when you're saying that they were doing that for 1,000 generations.
Right. Oh, and I don't know if they've like kind of decided to retcon that just a little bit and
Mm-hmm.
make the Republic age a little less mind-numbingly crazy long, but one way or another. I mean, like what I know it's Legends now, but like the Knights of the Old Republic game was set like 5,000 years before the main Star Wars timeline.
Right.
And they're like, well, and I remember the developers talking about it, or the people who were producing it, whatever. They were like, well, we wanted to have like a similar level of technology, and things haven't really changed like that crazy much over the 5,000 years. So like Jedi Revan and the Ebon Hawk, all that stuff happened like 5,000 years before the main storyline.
Mm-hmm.
It just I love the idea of the scope of that, and that's one of the reasons why the idea of the High Republic or whatever
Mm-hmm.
in the current Star, like there's all the different High Republic books that are coming out, and then the book or the show, what's it called now? I forget, first
Oh
having a brain
gosh.
fart. It's supposed to come out this Acolyte.
Right. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, it happens 200 years before, or 100 years, whatever it is, before the events of the movies. And I just really hope that they keep expanding
Mm-hmm.
that. Like they keep aging the universe and expand. Like I don't care what happens after Ray. If true, I'm just like, just screw it. Like Star Wars ends then. Let's explore what happened before to get here.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. Um, yeah. So you have this, I guess, pure filler episode though.
You're right. Which I still have like a million things to talk about because it's Star Wars.
um. Okay. So then the next episode is episode 6. What was that one called?
Hmm. Tribe. The Bad Batch helps bring a new friend home.
Mm-hmm. So this is the one with Gungi,
Yeah.
Gungi.
Yeah, I guess I'll call him Gungi. I think that's what they said.
I can't remember if it was Gungi or Gungi. I think it's Gungi. The Wookiee.
So I'm just gonna say it's fascinating to me. I don't know how it works, and I'm fine with this. This isn't like me trying to find a plot hole, but
Mhm.
they're like, "Hey, so what's your name?" And so he does his whole thing,
Yeah.
and from that, Hunter, who's
Mhm.
kind of rusty in Shriwook, speaking the Wookiee language, is able to take a name that's pronounceable by humans
Right.
out of it. He's like, I think it's Gungi. And I'm like, you got that from
Yes.
like I don't it doesn't make that. You would think that his name would still just be like a bunch of holes, and you couldn't really say the human version of it in Shriwook so that someone else can like interpret it into it's very, I don't know. I'm not a linguist, but it seems like that will be very challenging to be able to do, especially for someone who's like, I don't know about this language.
Right,
It's been a
because
long
he's
time.
he's rough in it. So
It seems like it would be almost impossible for anyone to take that, to be able to do that, but whatever. That's fairly small
It's a
detail.
small gripe.
Not even a gripe. It was just fascinating to think about the linguistic challenges that various species might have
Mm-hmm.
trying to communicate with each other in this universe.
That's a good point. Um, I do enjoy though seeing that like Hunter is like sort of the translator of sorts.
Hmm. Yeah, him and of course Tech.
Right.
Oh, and I just have to say that for the last episode, I did like that Tech
Mm-hmm.
was unable to crack the technology code. Like it was
I
so
know.
old that even Tech couldn't do it.
Which is it's kind of cool though that they did that.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. So,
Mm-hmm.
and and there is a limit to Tech's OP-ness.
Poor
Oh
guy.
gosh, that sounded. Yeah, I shouldn't say that combination of words ever again. Anyways, yeah. So I this one was funny to me because I love that the Bad Batch are just willing to they put so much emphasis on doing what's right
Yep.
that they're on a job for Sid.
I know.
And like this could probably screw up her business dealings with the weird droid group. I don't
Mm-hmm.
forget what they're called.
I
This
forget
is
too.
probably they're a bunch of L3 droids. Did you notice that? Like
Mm-hmm.
from yeah, like they're but I don't even know who leads. I don't know anything about that group. Maybe they actually exist in the canon. I don't personally know,
Right.
but that seems like they could have really royally screwed Sid
Right.
and her business dealings with those guys.
I feel like they don't care if they do.
But they gave no thought to it
Yeah.
at all. They're like, "Hey, we need help. Oh, someone's in trouble. Yeah, we'll help them. Like, screw you guys."
Yeah, I feel like they just go from one thing to the next based off who needs them. And if it burns somebody, then sorry, but this person needed them. So,
Right. Like, what kind of fallout? I wonder if Sid just kind of sees that as part of the business cost of have employing them. Of sometimes their conscience is going to get in the way of good business,
right.
and
Like she might get burned.
but typically they're so successful that and good at what they do and so
Mhm.
competent that she still makes a profit. She just it's a little less predictable for her. She's like, I don't know. I might take a loss on this one.
Right. Um, but I really enjoyed this episode though. This Wookiee episode.
Oh, me too. Like Gungi, he could have died in Order 66. No one would have really batted an eye. I mean, no one did,
Right.
really. My sons and I, we had a talk though. They wanted me to pause it so we could talk it through because they wanted to figure out if he was still a youngling or a Padawan or a Jedi.
Ah, and what did we decide on?
Okay, so he's a youngling in the episode, the Clone Wars episode that he
Mhm.
was in,
Right.
back when he was like Ahsoka was kind of escorting them to the place to get their kyber crystals.
Yep.
And then they're building their lightsabers when Hondo Onaka comes and kidnaps them or tries to kidnap them.
Mhm.
And so after that, I mean, this is it during the Clone Wars, though. Like the Clone Wars are going on as this is all happening,
Mhm.
so it's not that far away from Order 66. And the thought though was if he was still a youngling when Order 66 happened, he would probably be on Coruscant and therefore most likely have gotten the axe.
Right. Okay.
But he's probably a Padawan with his master, and his master, like Corin, my youngest, he's like, oh, so he's probably with his master, and his master was able to save him, like distract the clones and buy him the time so he could escape, and
Mm.
he made up a whole story kind of.
Yeah.
And it was just fun to see like the wheels turning in
Mhm.
his head, like trying to figure out the story. So that was our guess, was he was a Padawan when it happened.
Okay. I like it. It's all very logical.
That's us, man. That's what we do. uh no, so I mean, I like this episode too because you like the attention to detail in The Last of Us there.
Hmm.
I also like I love that he's like, I don't even know what hometown I have. Like I don't know who my people are because and then you're like, oh, because you were like one when they shipped you off or however old they
Yeah.
are.
So he has no recollection of anything.
Right, which calls into question then he like shows up on Kashyyyk
Hmm.
and instantly he has some kind of connection to the creatures and he's like, oh, they won't mess with us unless we threaten them. Like he just knows instinctively.
Right. Which
So because
is
he wasn't taught that by other Wookiees because he wasn't taught anything by other Wookiees really.
right because like you said he's gone off when he's one.
Yeah.
Um which is kind of it's kind of nice to see that though. It ties
Yeah.
into like knowing your own species and having that or your tribe like the episode's called and having that kind of it's almost like a sixth sense.
Yeah.
So but I liked it. There you had some stormtrooper action, you had some, you know, action sequences and fighting and all that. I really enjoy getting to see him pop his lightsaber, and
Yeah.
it's just nice little. It didn't feel fillery when I was watching it, but when I look at it, I'm like, probably maybe a little bit.
Yeah, but that's the kind of thing you don't mind because it really like it boosts the whereas like the weird like exploring old alien technology and stuff like
Right.
who what bearing does that have on anything at all? But this one it shows what just another little glimpse of that's happening with Jedi and a
Mm-hmm.
character that we see, and then there's also a glimpse at the canon of the. I've always been curious about this. The old canon said that the Trandoshans had enslaved the Wookiees,
Right.
but in the new canon, they basically have just said that the Empire enslaved them,
Right.
which just left this weird like what's going on with the Trandoshans? Like why are they actually involved? Is that did they just totally retcon that? That's just not a thing anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of nice to see the Trandoshans doing their thing. Not that I love enslaving Wookiees or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Just nice to see that they kind of were able to tie that old Legends
Yeah.
arc to it.
And
So
bring it in. I will say I also enjoyed in this episode like he's not immediately grateful that they're saving him or helping him or whatever. Like
right.
he's not trusting of them because he saw Order 66 happen and he's like, these are clones and they like
Hmm.
I don't want anything to do with you. And it's a nice not a nice way, but it is a nice way of kind of tying those 2 points of in time together and how it creates this effect now.
Hmm. Oh, and I liked how understanding Hunter and the rest of them were. They're like, "Yeah, we get it, man. Like, we're not here to kill you, but we get why you'd be scared,
Right.
why you'd be frightened of us." I do want to also point out the difference between so in the treasure hunting episode,
Mm-hmm.
Hunter the whole time is like, "I let's not let's leave. Why are we here? There's no point. Why are we here? Why are we here?" He
Right.
doesn't care about that enrichment. He cares about doing what's right because this one there's no thought to it. He's like, yeah, we're gonna take him to his planet. Okay, we're gonna help him,
Right.
like find his people. Like, yeah, like no question, just absolutely. This is helping a person as opposed to like self enrichment. Who cares?
Right. It kind of highlights where his moral compass goes a lot.
Yeah, it's nice.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it also goes back to the fact of like they are morally boring.
Right.
Like they're gonna just be good guys. There's not really something that's gonna happen that makes them into bad guys somehow.
Right. Fair.
So yeah, I like this episode,
Mm-hmm.
and I hope we get Gungi in Galaxy of Heroes.
Me too. I would really enjoy that.
Yeah, could do the Kashyyyk mission easier.
Yes, please. Um, okay, so then we got 2 episodes this week, right?
Yeah, which I wasn't expecting, but yeah,
I
pleasant
was I
surprise.
was not expecting it. I'm assuming they did it because they kind of like they tied together, and this sort of felt like a mid-season finale, right?
Well, they called it that actually early on. Like I
Mm,
knew I knew they were going to do a mid-season finale like
mm,
when the show started. I didn't I didn't necessarily think that they would do 2 episodes in the same
right.
day release, but I mean I was good with it. So the first one's called The Clone Conspiracy.
Hmm.
A conspiracy begins to unravel. And then episode 8 was called Truth and Consequences. Brought into a risky mission, the batch must use stealth to survive, which is like not I don't know, it's just funny. That doesn't really capture what happens very well, but
No, no.
um gosh, there's a lot about this episode. Yeah, lots about this episode. What were your thoughts?
Um, I really liked these two because it really did feel like kind of one episode to me. Like when I watched it, they just
Hmm.
sort of
Sure,
went right into the next.
absolutely.
And I liked it because it felt like it brought everything full circle from Order 66. Like you see how it all starts. You see that they're not the Bad Batch squad's not affected with Order 66, um, other than Crosshair. But like you see that they uh, are defective, quote unquote, or whatever you want to call them. And this
Hmm.
just sort of felt like it was a full circle moment. Like you're following them from when that happens, and now you're meeting back up with the person who started it and how
Hmm.
how he's trying to manipulate the situation in his favor.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing to think that he doesn't have absolute power yet either.
Yeah, that he hasn't. That's a good point because he still looks evil.
Well, sure. I mean, he's still got like absolute power in the sense that, whatever you want to call it, like just he's got his force power, but
Hmm.
just the idea that he is still beholden, at least on some level, to the Senate.
Right.
Like the Senate has to make decision but he's still playing his games of, just obfuscating what he needs to and tricking people into doing what he wants.
Hmm.
He's always and he doesn't have like a bunch of really, the senators aren't really working together that well either.
No, you can kind of see like all these cracks forming, which I think is good in a way because then you can see how Palpatine manages to get this power, right? Because like you said, he's still
Right.
playing into the Senate, but if you have senators not working together, you're going to be able to manipulate that in your favor.
Yeah, I mean, it really made me think of just like in the Clone Wars, there were a ton of episodes where Padme worked with her friends, her senator friends, to do things, to keep his power in check and stuff. And they
Hmm.
had kind of a coalition going, and that's kind of seems a little bit rare. Like Bail Organa goes and talks to Senator Chuchi, and it's like they used to kind of be friends, and they still are friendly toward each other, but they clearly haven't been talking to each other that much lately.
Right. Everything seems a little bit I feel weird using the word tense, but
Yeah, it's just it's a tricky situation to navigate for everyone, I think. And I I like to see Senator Chuchi though, because she was an important part of the Clone Wars.
mhm.
And she was able to I had always wondered about her, about what had happened to her. And here's what I thought going into this episode. I thought this was going to be another episode of, like the clone arc with Fives, and how
Mhm.
his chip is malfunctioning, and so they spend the whole time like tracking him down and finally killing him
Yeah.
before he's able to tell everyone the evils of the chip, the
Right.
Order 66 chip, the
Mhm.
inhibitor chip. And I thought this was going to be another episode of that, of like clones just slowly getting hunted down by
Ugh.
Rampart until they couldn't tell the story. And I was glad that it went a little different.
That was I'm too, because that was a sad episode in Clone Wars.
So sad. Yeah.
Uh,
Well, it reminded me there was like this. There's like a book called like what Shadow Hunter or something
mhm,
about Maul. Maul goes and kills a Jedi, but he didn't realize that his Padawan was there too.
mhm.
So he spends the whole episode. We spend the whole episode with the Padawan of her just slowly being hunted down by Maul, and finally she escapes. She gets to Coruscant, and Palpatine comes in and he's like, "Oh, you're a hero, my dear. Wonderful. Like, congratulations." And she's like, "Why isn't there anyone else here?" And then he leaves and Maul comes in and kills her.
Oh.
And it's just like, oh, I'm sorry if I ruined that book for anyone, but it's been out for like 30 years. So
Oh, that is just sad.
I know. I hate that. Like you get hunted the whole time and then the person you've been rooting for and everything triumphs, but
Hmm.
they don't because Maul's the main character actually and he wins.
Man,
Yeah. But it didn't happen this episode.
no, apparently not. Um, yeah, so and it looks like too that they're trying to, uh, because the clones are now starting to realize that their chips are what's they're fighting for the wrong side, kind of thing. Um,
Yeah.
they're gonna introduce or try to introduce stormtroopers and switch from clone troopers to stormtroopers, and
Yeah, the inevitable swap.
yeah, which I feel like makes sense, and it's a nice little way to tie that together.
Yeah, so one thing I didn't realize actually was that Rampart had told everyone that it was just a storm that killed everyone on Camino.
Hmm.
I thought that it was just an official action by the Empire, and then they just didn't tell anyone exactly what happened. But instead, yeah, like apparently he's just trying to just totally obfuscate what happened.
Yeah, wipe his hands of it and carry on.
Yeah, yeah, just trying to garner his, consolidate his power and all of that stuff. And so he has a sniper guy and it's not Crosshair. Like where is Crosshair? We've seen
Right?
him one episode.
And that was a while ago, wasn't it? It was like episode 2 or 3.
Yeah, like the third one, I think.
So we're due for some crosshair.
Where's Crosshair? Is he okay?
I don't know. Who knows at this point?
Well, it kind of made us think for a little bit that maybe he was the sniper, but he wasn't.
No. Um, I also really enjoyed that they had Rex come in here.
And he was hanging out in the Martez sisters
Yeah.
uh, shop. We didn't have to see the Martez sisters. We just got to see their shop, which is the best version of them.
Tell us how you really feel.
I just did. So no, it was that was cool. Yeah, it's I liked seeing Senator Chuchi. I was sad to see. I thought they were going to kill her off. I was glad they didn't.
Yeah. That's that's a relief so far. I mean, these two episodes just kind of tied both of them were obviously tied together. They tied everything back to the start and also what's going on now, how Palpatine wants to move forward, what's going on with the clones. Like there was just so much. And then I feel like it was the perfect way to do a mid-season finale because you know there's more coming and it didn't end on a crazy cliffhanger per se. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but it really just felt like a really it almost was like the season kind of like was going up and then you get a little bit of a plateau, which is fine, and then this is the next uptick starting.
Right. I will say I was sad to see that Echo is leaving hang
Yeah,
out with to hang out with Rex, even though I like Rex well enough and everything. Um,
it is sad,
yeah.
and it's
Yeah, don't leave.
I.
Don't leave me.
I was watching that and I immediately started thinking about how you and I were talking about which clone would you remove from the squad if you had to pick one. And
Right.
it's just sad that one of them is actually being removed from the squad now.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. He is. He's kind of redundant with tech anyways. He's like
But
I have a
still,
I have a droid hand. That's basically it.
I've enjoyed it. But it's still sad.
Absolutely, it is. It is sad. And I don't know where they're gonna go with this,
Yeah,
frankly.
I'm curious. Like, what happens? Does he just go off and then we see the rest of the squad do whatever? Does Crosshair meet up with the rest of the squad now and there's an open spot for him and then we don't see Echo anymore? Like,
Yeah. I want to know what happens with Rex because right now he's opposing the Empire.
right.
Eventually, he gives that up to go Jupa slinging on some random backwater planet,
Hmm.
and he just turns into old man Rex. He's not old right now,
Yeah.
but it's not that far away. So it's like a decade away from from then to now, whatever. So they all age a little faster and
Hmm.
everything, of course, but I want to know what broke him. Why does he not want to help the rebellion anymore? At some point, he just gives it up. And in the interim, what happens to Echo?
Right. Which makes me think that something bad is going to happen.
Yeah, I think Echo is not long for this world, which makes me real sad.
Well, I don't want to think about that
Okay, then don't.
cuz I I am of the same thinking and I don't like it.
Hmm.
Because I could see that being what breaks Rex as well.
Okay. All right. He sees it like Bail Organa as just another manipulator or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
like
It's just
I guess it would depend on how it happened if it were to happen.
yeah. We'll have to see. I honestly I thought that Rampart was gonna die in the finale,
Mhm.
but it looks like he's done. So they're gonna have to find a new bad guy for
Yeah,
the
who
second half.
would it would it be Palpatine? Would you just continue that?
It was fun to see Palpatine, to be
It
honest.
was.
See him working it, and using Masamita
Mhm.
to help him pull the strings and stuff. It's kind of fun to see that.
Yeah, so
But I mean, Palpatine, they can't have him in every episode.
no, 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 no. I don't think so either. But I don't know what you would do next for the next bad guy.
Yeah, I truly don't know what's gonna happen with hmm just trying to think of I mean so Rampart kind of came to power a little early. Like Tarkin's already very influential though.
Mm-hmm.
I just wonder if Tarkin becomes kind of their I don't know, like what is gonna happen next? Because Echo's going to join Rex,
Mm-hmm.
and presumably we're going to get more material from them. What's going to happen with Cody? What's going to happen with all of the different
Right.
clones? I wonder if the rest of this season is going to be about the clones. Actually, the in general clones, the clones who are being phased out.
Right. So not necessarily like the Bad Batch squad, but the other ones.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. That would be interesting.
well, and the Bad Batch like trying to help them in some way.
Yeah. Um, man, I just don't know what to expect. But I have a feeling I might cry at the end of this season.
Okay, well, feel free.
I have a feeling it's gonna be sad.
Very well then. Um, yeah. So, I mean, Omega already cried.
Yes.
It was funny. My oldest son actually he was like, "Oh, I wonder if it's the same actor doing Senator Chuchi's voice as Omega's voice."
Oh, is it? Did you
And
end up
I don't
looking it
think
up?
I doubt it. No, we didn't look it up, but it was just a funny observation. He's like, and they actually look really similar, and that they're actually, if you look closely, they do look pretty similar as well.
That's kind of funny.
Oh, it made me so nervous when Omega was just hanging out with Chuchi in the Senate halls, and they
Hmm.
ran into Rampart. I was like,
Yeah.
Rampart knows Omega, like he knows who she is,
Hmm. It
and
was.
he just didn't notice,
She got lucky,
I guess, or the kid grown-ups just don't notice it, kids or something.
or that.
But yeah, I was like, why are you putting yourselves at risk? Like this is crazy.
Oh man. Yeah. No. No. It was a good. I don't know. I liked it. I thought it was a good little mid season finale. That hope we get another. They don't take like a break, right? Like it just continues next week.
As far as I know, yeah.
Okay. Because usually, like when they do mid-season finales, there's like a little break.
So there was a small part of me that was happening that I thought at the end. So she just like plays the disc. She just trusts that they sent in the right information.
Mm-hmm.
There's like some part of me that wanted it to be just like some random sitcom that someone had recorded or something. Like they just stole the wrong data or
Mm-hmm.
something. And it's just like, oh, Senator Chuchi, what's wrong with you?
You're just expecting, or you're hoping for a curveball.
I didn't really want you wanted, I wanted it to be that. I just there's some part of me, or just like, homemade porn would have been funny, like I know that wouldn't have been a thing, but I just like some random. She just trusts him so readily. She just like, oh, here's the disc. Let's plug it in so everyone in the Senate can watch it
Mm-hmm.
without me actually screening to see if it's something I want to show everyone.
Right. Just trusting that you can.
Yeah, just anyways. That's all.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Uh,
Well, we talked for a lot longer about this than I thought. Sorry.
no, you're good. Um, I guess that's it though. Like that's the mid-season thing, and we'll just see what the rest of the season has to offer. Another 8 episodes.
Another eight. Yep. So we'll have a little bit of overlap between Bad Batch and Mando
Mm-hmm.
and Last of Us.
Right. Right. Because I think The Last of Us will probably be on like episode 7 or 8 when Mando starts, something like that.
Sure.
I'm guessing.
Yeah, I mean, we could map it out even.
Requires a lot of work and brain
So let's
power.
see. February 10th is Last of Us
Yeah.
5. 17th is Last of Us 6. 24th is Last of Us 7.
Right.
Or I guess I'm going on Fridays. The
Oh.
26th would be Last of Us 7. So that, and then a couple days later it would be Mando
Mm-hmm.
episode 1. Yeah, so there's like 3 weeks of it of
Yeah.
overlap.
Of overlap. That's not bad.
Mm-hmm. Not too bad, no.
It's manageable.
Mando, which, well, it didn't quite work.
No. Nice try.
It wasn't. Narrator, it
It
wasn't.
was. Any other thoughts?
I think that's it. It's good. Both good shows. Good times.
Good shows. Okay. So we'll do some more next week.
Sounds good. Yeah. See you guys next week.